Alright guys, last video for this chapter module quarter, right? So last time, hopefully if you watched it, if not, I recommend you go back, watch our stuff. I do it for a reason to help you guys out. We talked about this chart, the verb, the net, and I kind of gave you two versions of how to use this verb, to talk about things or to talk about actions. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the video. I think it's called the ned versus the netke, because that's like the ned versus the netke. Today we're looking at this one. So I'm looking at the same review page, still page 105. I haven't moved it at all. But again, I'm going to show you on the other slide right over here just because it's probably going to be bigger and you can see it a bit easier. We are going to be looking at one verb, but technically this will work on a lot of the words that we're using for this chapter. It's just this is the one that the book gives you as an example. So I'm going to turn to the other page. This is actually page 96. If you want to use in your own book, it might be a bit bigger and a bit easier to look at, but we're going to be looking at a new chart. So I'm going to get us started. So again, this kind of gives you the information of what the heck are we doing in this page, right, in this notes section. So we're going to be looking at types of verbs. Verbs end in three ways, and we've talked about this before. We haven't practiced it too much because we haven't done as many verbs in class, like in general, but spellings matter, obviously, in Spanish, but they're hints of telling you like what something is. So a verb, an action word, right, an activity that you're talking about, you can tell in Spanish that that is like an action word based on how it's spelled. The spelling that you're looking for is either the word ends with an AR at the end of it, or it can end with an ER, like E for English, or it can end with an IR, like, of course, the I with a dot right here, still in English. So if a word ends with ARs, ERs, or IRs, it means it's a verb. It's an action word. That's always going to be a rule that we know. Today, we are looking at one type of those verbs, specifically AR verbs. So the most popular type of verb is an AR verb. Most of them are like this. We will talk about how to change ER verbs and how to change IR verbs, the other two types, in different videos later in the year. Right now, we're starting with the most popular because it's the one that we use the most often. Just like in the last chapter, where we changed, let me scroll to get your full chart here, where we changed the spellings, not just the last chapter, the last video, the last chart, and also last chapter, we always have a special spelling that goes in each of these boxes that matches the person that you're talking about, right? This is the case here. The only difference is that the other two charts that we've had have been like special charts that you only use for that verb. In this case, we are going to be looking at what's highlighted, all the red endings, and you can actually use those endings in any word that ends with an AR. So I could even give you a word you've never heard of, and because of the fact that it ends with the same spelling, AR, you can change it the same way that this word is being changed in the chart, and it would make sense. So I'm going to walk you through, give you an example of that, and then maybe even give you a way that you can see this changing for words you might not even know what they are. So let's talk about this verb first. This verb is hablar. It means to talk or to speak, whichever one. They both kind of mean the same thing. So the way that you change the spellings of these AR verbs is you always have to do one thing first. In order to change the spelling, you have to drop, if it says right here, the AR, the two letters at the end, and then you add the new ending. So look, hablar looks like HABLAR. We're going to take away this AR. You can see it falling away. It's getting lighter and lighter. And then instead of the AR, we're going to put either an O or an AS or an A, AMOS, AIS, or AN, depending as to who you're talking about. So this is like the filled out version. If I talk about myself, I'm always going to have an O. That's like the number one rule. If you talk about yourself, your ending will always have an O. Not just for this word, right? I can give you any random word you've never heard of, as long as it's a word that ends with an AR. If you want to talk about how you did whatever the word was, if I walked, I cleaned, I ate, I swam, whatever I did, I put an O when talking about me. If you're talking to someone, right, like someone you're close to, someone you're friends with, someone that you know pretty well, then you have a different spelling. You put an AS instead of the AR that you took away. Remember, this goes away. That part's not there anymore. You have to change it now. So instead of having that normal spelling, you're putting an AS. This third box, if I'm talking about a guy, a girl, an adult, someone else, right? Someone that's not me, not someone I'm talking to, just someone I'm talking about, like that girl, that boy, the new ending is an A. So the words become habló instead of hablar, right? There's an R at the end, hablar. If I'm saying how I talk to someone, yo hablo. If I'm saying that you, my friend, whoever it might be, talk to someone, tú hablas. If I'm saying one person, someone that I'm like talking about, like, oh yeah, the boy in class had to talk to the teacher. Él, the boy, habla. So he talks with the teacher, right? Because he lost an assignment or something. Habla. Second column here, we have whole new endings, right? None of these have the same spelling, which means you have to keep it matching the right person, because if not, it's going to be wrong. So, for we, nosotros or nosotras. Maybe we have to talk to the teacher because we're trying to partner up for a project. I would say nosotros or nosotras if they're all girls. Hablamos. That's the new ending. It's a pretty long ending, but that's a new ending. Remember, both of these, the bottom two, mean they. We just don't really use the middle one because we're not from Spain and they're special. Either way, if you want to use it, right? It's not that you can't use it, it's just not really popular. You say nosotros or nosotras if they're all girls. Habláis, like ice, like cold ice. And then the bottom one that usually people use is for lots of people, right? Maybe lots of adults, maybe just a giant group of people or a giant group of girls or guys, doesn't matter, but more than one person. I would say hablan for them. So like ellos hablan en clase. They were talking in class. So, doesn't really matter what verb I give you, what action word I give you, as long as it is an AR verb, right? Not if it's an ER verb, because those are going to have different endings. Not if it's an IR verb, because those are going to have different endings. If it's an AR verb, you will do the same exact thing. Take away the last two letters, put the new endings, and then just choose the right one depending as to who you talk about. So, I think, let me go back and find, I'm going to get seasick because I'm scrolling through all this really quick. We're going to have quite a few words, here we go, in this chapter that end with ARs. Look, contestar, to answer, has an AR at the end. Enseñar, to teach, has an AR at the end. Llegar, to arrive or to get somewhere, has an AR. So look, AR, 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 AR. All of these are words that you can follow this same rule with. So, for example, if we'll do a small here, this word's going to kind of sound a little funny probably, but if you want to talk about the word usar, it's an AR verb, right? So it's going to have the same rules like we did for the others, hablar that we just talked about. And if I want to talk about how like a bunch of people, or depending as to who I'm talking about, are using a computer, I'm going to follow the same rules. So I'm not going to give you a chart because I'm just doing this verbally, obviously. I will show you stuff in class when we go over it too. I'll give you more examples. But let's say that I'm trying to say that I use a computer. Like right now, I'm using a computer. I have to take away the last two letters, right? That was the rule. And then I have to put the right ending. So let me quickly show you here. These red highlights, I guess also, are the endings. So look, if I talk about myself, my new ending should be an O, right? So I'm talking about that word, usar, U-S-A-R. I'm going to change it, take away this part right here, and I would put an O instead. So it would be uso, right, with an O. So like, yo uso la computadora. I use a computer, which I do. If I'm talking to you, or I'm talking to one of my friends, and I'm saying like, hey, you use computers for school now too, right? Because everybody's online. I could say tú, and look at the new ending. We'll go back. AS this time because I'm talking to my friend. So tú usas la computadora. You use a computer too, right? I'm saying everybody's using computers now. If I'm talking about one individual, so I'm not talking to them, I'm just saying like, oh yeah, my friend's using computers, my cousin uses a computer, my dad has to use a computers for work, like everybody's using them. I would say usa. Because, I'll go back and show you again, if it's one individual, right, my friend, my mom, my dad, doesn't matter who, they only have an A. So I said usa, because one person did. Usa, like my friend. Usa la computadora. Before I go back to the next one, obviously if we're going to go in order. So we're going to say we, that's your new ending, A-M-O-S. So, here's our word again. If I'm saying we, because obviously all of us in class, right, have to use a computer for work, or for school, for you guys. So I would say, nosotros usamos, A-M-O-S ending, la computadora. We use the computer. And then the last one, I'm going to go back and show you again super quick. Again, I'm not going to do the Spain one because we're not there. We're not using it super popular, at least not a lot. We're going to have an A-N because a lot of people. So go back and take a look at ours. Usar, to use, right? So maybe I'll say that my cousins have to use computers too because they do. So I can say mis primos, that's how you say cousins, by the way. Mis primos usan, A-N, instead of this letter, A-R, la computadora. My cousins use the computer. So, like I said, doesn't matter the word you have. It can be a vocab word from this chapter. It can be a vocab word from 3 chapters from now, right, that you like skip forward to just look at. If it ends with an AR, that's what you do to them. We're going to keep practicing this for the whole week, technically the entire year and all of next year. No matter who you have to learn how to do this. This is like the basic foundation of Spanish, and not to scare you, but truthfully, if you don't really know how to conjugate by the time you finish Spanish, every other year, every other class is going to kind of suck, because this is like, you need to know how to do this in order to kind of build on it and work with the rest of everything. But because we do it so much, it's going to be like super easy. It's going to be like second nature for you guys super quick. But this is your first introduction to the huge idea of conjugating or changing the spellings of words to match the people. That's basically all it is. All right, so we'll talk about it in class. If you guys have questions, let me know. If not, hopefully it was relatively easy. All right, I'll see you guys later.